Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery. Today I'm going to be showing a tutorial on making quilling paper cone flowers. We're going to be using a lot of different materials and a few different techniques, so let's just jump right in. I had there some dark red and some yellow quilling paper. That's going to be for the middle of the flower. I have here a color called Raspberry from Quilled Creations. That's going to be the petals. I'm going to be using some leaf green. That is going to be part of our stem. I'm going to be using both a needle tool and a slotted tool. This is going to be done on a quilling comb, the petals, but I'm going to be using this very small comb. I'll link down in the description a quilling comb that you could use if you don't have one of those. You're going to need some tweezers maybe, definitely some small scissors, a small paintbrush, a ruler because we're going to be doing a little bit of measuring. You're going to need a workboard that is covered and some pins. I have my white glue here in my needle nose container. I'm also going to be using tacky glue, and I'll show you an option for hot glue instead later on if you would prefer to use that. We're also going to be making some stems for these because these are going to be 3D flowers. So I have an 18 gauge wire, a little bit of floral tape, and then some wire snips just to cut the wire off of the spool. The first thing we're going to do is make the center of the flower. This is the cone part of the cone flower. And to do that, I'm going to be taking my pale yellow paper and I'm measuring 8 inches. And then I'm taking the dark red paper and I'm going to be measuring 2 strips. Also, they're both going to be 8 inches long. These paper strips that I'm using today are all 1/8 inch wide. As always, I will link to the brands and the colors and all the supplies in the description box for the videos. What we're going to be doing is stacking these 3 strips with the yellow in between, but I want the yellow to be a little bit higher than the other 2 pieces. So to do that, that's what it's essentially going to look like on one side. To get these strips layered the way we want them, we're just going to put a small line of white glue right along the edge of one of the dark red strips. I find it easiest to do this in sections so that you're making sure that your pieces are even and they're not going crooked. So you can see there I did a little bit of glue right along the edge of the red and then lined the yellow strip up so it's hanging over, and then we're going to move on to the next few inches. Once you feel confident that your strip isn't going to go crooked, you're welcome to do a little bit more at a time, or if you feel really daring, obviously go ahead and do the whole strip at once. I have just found it's easiest just to do a little bit at a time until you get it where it's not going to go off the side. So I'm going to do that all the way down and then keep pressing the yellow strip down so that it is all even and it hangs off the side like I said. Once that is all set, we're going to add on the other dark red strip. And you want that to be on the same level as the first red strip. So again, picture it like a sandwich, but that middle strip is hanging off the side of the bread a little bit. So we're going to go back to the opposite side of the first red strip where we put the glue before, and then put a line of glue on that side so that this red strip sits right on top of that. And just like we did with the yellow, a little bit of glue at a time to make sure it doesn't go crooked, and then get that whole second red strip secure on that little sandwich. After those strips have dried a little bit, we're going to move on to fringing this center. If you've ever seen a coneflower, it has this center that comes up from the middle of the petals, and it has these tiny little spiky things all over the top of it. So that's what we're going to be doing right now with the fringe, cutting just through the yellow part of the strip sandwich here. If you cut a little bit into the red, it is okay, but just very small little strips all the way down so that you make a bunch of little small fringe. There's a lot of different ways to do fringe paper. I've made a video on that, and I'll link to that in the description box as well, in addition to some other videos that use fringe technique if you'd like to see those. But we're just going to get all the way through to the end of the paper, and then we're going to work on rolling this piece up. Once you get to the end of the fringe, grab your slotted quilling tool. That will work best for this because this paper is so thick, since it's essentially got 3 strips together. Some slotted tools are a little bit thinner in the working end, so it might not fit very well in there. It really you just have to get it on just a little bit. So don't worry if it feels like it's a tight fit, that'll be okay. I will link to a wider slotted tool in the tool list of the description box for this video, so that you can have a choice there if you feel like your tools might not work for this part. I'm going to wind it all the way start to finish and add some glue to the end. I do suppose a needle tool could work for this. It just might be tricky to get it started, so give that a shot. If you don't want to buy a new tool, that should be okay. Anyway, hold this for a few seconds until it sets, and then you can go ahead and pop it off your tool. Now we're going to make this center have a good size dome to it. We're really going to push that middle up quite a bit, but I wouldn't go for like a spike. The center should still kind of be intact. Add some glue underneath when you're happy with that, and brush that out so that it sets the shape that you like. And then once that is dry, you can either with your fingers or even your needle tool kind of separate out those spikes a little bit. And that makes the center look a little bit more realistic. It also lets some of that red peek through, because that is really what the cone would look like. It has sort of a red center with yellow spikes on it. So that's why we did that layering effect of the 3 different papers. So unfortunately, I didn't let my dome dry enough before I started doing this, so I have to push that center back out again. So again, let that dry fully before you start messing with your yellow spikes. And now we can move on to the petals. So for this, like I said, I'm using this lightish fuchsia color that's called raspberry. And I'm going to be using my little comb there. But when I do that, I like to make a small anchor on my needle tool first. So I just wrapped it around my needle tool just a couple of times, because these teeth on this comb are very, very tight together. So I couldn't really wrap it up too much, but it's just to give it a little point to start with. It helps it stay on the tool a little bit easier. And then I had my tail of my strip in the back, pulled it forward in the very next tooth on the comb, pulled it up and back to the back, one more tooth. So again, I have the middle piece, pulled it forward one and then back one. So tail's in the back again. We're going to go one more tooth on the bottom, pull it back up, and then one more tooth on the top. And I'm going to keep doing that until I get 4 teeth on either side. So that's number 3 on one side, and then loop it around to number 3 on the other side. And now this is going to be our last one. There's 4, and there's 4. And I have lots and lots and lots of quilling comb technique videos. I can link to those As well, if you're not familiar, that this technique I've shown many, many times. This is just a smaller version. Tear off your excess on the back and then carefully remove it from the comb. We're going to glue down the tail, just using white glue for that part. Just a little bit on the end of the tail and press that to seal. And this is what that shape should look like. It has a little anchor in the center and then 4 loops on either side. Because that comb was so small, this is going to be a very small piece. And unfortunately, I left my tail just a tiny bit too long, so I'm just going to snip that off there. What you're going to do at this point is pinch one side of this piece. A real good pinch, just on one side. Okay, so that's for that. And we need 3 of these to make one of the petals for our flower. After you have the 3 made, you're going to sandwich them together by putting some glue. Again, I'm just using white glue for this part. From the end that you didn't pinch almost to the other end. You don't want to put glue all the way down where the pointed end is. You're going to leave that part without some glue. So you're going to put some glue about 3/4 of each of these sides and stack those 3 together. So it should look like that when you're stacking them. We're going to smush them all down, giving a real hard pinch on the end that we did glue. It is okay if you pinch the other end as well. We didn't put any glue on that side, so that's not going to stick. But we want one end to be completely together, and then the other end where the pieces are that we pinched individually, they are going to stay separated. So it looks like it is almost like a little paw. It's got 3 little open ends like little toes. For each flower, you're going to need between 10 and 12 of those flower petals. Now herein lies the trickiest part of this whole project. We're going to be putting these petals on so that they're facing downward. That aids in the coneflower shape. We don't want them sticking straight out. We don't want them pointing up. We want them pointing down. If you want to use hot glue for this, by all means, go ahead. I find that that gets a little bit messy for me, so I developed this sort of stand for my center to stay standing up. So I put 2 small straight pins down and then 1 longer straight pin through the center. The 2 shorter ones are kind of propping it up, and then the longer pin is keeping it in place. And I forgot to mention earlier in this post that I'm using 2 different types of pins. That might not be necessary. If you have the one size pins, maybe you can just push them in your paper further. I have found that the 2 small pins and the 1 larger pin works really well for this. So then I made a small pile of tacky glue, and what I'm going to be doing is dipping my petals in the glue and then using another long pin to pin them at an angle to the center. This is going to take some time and some practice. Again, if you are much better than I am with the hot glue, or you want to take the time to hold these individually as the tacky glue sets, by all means, go for it. If you can come up with a better system, by all means, go for it. I'd love to hear about it. This is what I have come up with after making these flowers a few times, the system that works for me. So the pin is holding it against the center and also at a downward angle. And then to keep them even, I go across and put one in the opposite side. And from there, it's just a matter of turning and pinning each individual petal on. I like to go, like I said, opposite sides to make them even as they go around. A little bit time consuming, but I think that's what makes the look of this flower. At this point, I just have one more petal to go. I got into a groove, so it really didn't take too long at all. And just squeeze this in to that one last open space and pin it into place. And then I'm going to set my flower apart to dry for a bit while I work on my stem. If you want to make a flower stem, this is how I would do it for these flowers. I have about 6 inches or so of an 18 gauge copper wire. Snip that off of my little spool, and then it's just a matter of wrapping it with some flower tape. And accidentally tore that off. So just start from one end, and it gets sticky as you pull it, and wrap it all the way from start to finish to the other side. And after that is all wrapped, I'm going to be taking some of this leaf green paper to make sort of a cup on the end that's going to hold the flower to the stem. So this is Craft Harbor Leaf Green. This is one of my favorite greens, the nice dark olivey color. And I'm taking this entire 24-inch strip, rolling it from end to end. And I'm going to take that off my tool. Once it gets a little bit hard to manage, finish rolling that and glue the end to seal. Like I said, we want this to be sort of a cup shape, so we're going to push the inside out a little bit to make a small dome, add some glue just like we did to the center of the flower earlier, and brush that out so it gets on all the layers, and set that aside to dry for a little bit. And then you can use some tacky glue or some hot glue to glue it to the end of your stem, and then that stem will be ready to go. At this point, my petals have dried, so I can go ahead and take all the pins out. And that is our cone flower. You can make these more exaggerated by putting the petals at a steeper angle. That is definitely an option. I just wanted to show a way that it's easiest to make these, so they're not as exaggerated as real life cone flowers. But they are a little bit easier to manage. It gets trickier to get the petals to stay once they get really exaggerated. So you might want to do that, like I said, with the hot glue or one by one with the tacky glue. If you want to use the flower stem at this point, you would just apply some tacky glue or some hot glue to that green dome at the end of your stem, and that'll sit right on the back of the red dome that we made earlier for the center of the flower. And here are some others. You can see some of these, the orange and the yellow have a little bit more of a slope to them on the petals. The white has a bigger center, and so a few more petals on the outside of that one. But for colors for these, they should be kind of bright. They grow in this early summer around me quite a bit, and these are the types of colors that I see. Even sort of a bright reddish orange I see a lot as well. But go crazy with these flowers. You can, like I said, adjust the slope of your petals, make the insides a little bit more domed or larger or smaller, whatever you think is best. I'd love to hear about it. Leave any questions you have in the comments. I will leave a whole bunch of links, all different supplies, a quilling comb with nice tight teeth like the one that I used, and links to different videos about fringe projects and quilling comb projects. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be notified the next time I make a video. Thanks so much for watching as always, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.